for tuning in for another D6 Pack video. For those of you who are Trekkies, you may already be aware of this, but April 5th is, in Star Trek history, the day that the Vulcans first made contact with the Earth, therefore known as First Contact Day. In honor of that, we are going to be playing Star Trek Panic, so I'm going to be going over the rules of that today, but before I do that, if you appreciate this video, please like and subscribe to our channel. Also check out our audio podcast, which releases the second and last Thursday of every month. Also, you can check out our social media accounts at D6Pack Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch. Also, check out our live play of this on April 5th on Twitch. And with that, let me get to the game. So this is the basic setup for Star Trek Panic. You have the Enterprise with full shields all the way around it. You place one each of a Romulan battlecruiser, Klingon battlecruiser, and a Tholian. You place the mission deck off to the side of the table and the mission timer as well. And then you have your deck of Enterprise cards, which are how the game is going to play. Each player will get a turn order card and a character. You can either do that at random or have each player choose their own character. And then they will get a hand of cards, which is going to be based on the player count. In a 2-player count, each player has a hand of 6 cards. And with that, you are ready to begin the game. So play continues around the table, with each player taking a turn that is played out in different phases. So the first phase of a player's turn is to draw up to their hand limit, which I said in a 2-player game is 6 cards. Then if the mission was completed on the previous player's turn, we would reveal a new mission and enact any parameters that are specified by that mission. So I guess now is a good time to talk about that. So this is kind of what a mission card is going to look like. Up at the top here, you have the mission parameters, which are going to be some sort of restriction on how that round, or how the game is going to be played while that mission is in effect. So for this one, for example, we set the mission timer to 6, and during the mission, the current mission time indicates the maximum number of cards that the active player may play. So I haven't gotten to playing cards yet. I'll explain that in a minute, but normally your only limit is your hand size, so this one may be restrictive of how much you can do on your turn. And then it also tells you the mission objective, which is listed at the bottom there, and it also gives you a graphic. I will come back to that in a minute because that'll make more sense as I talk about playing cards. So after a new mission is revealed, the next phase would be to trade a card. So in a 2-player game, you don't have a lot of options. You only have one other person you can trade with. In a higher player count, you have more options of cards around the table, but each player has fewer cards in their hand that you can choose from. So you can choose one of your cards to trade if you think the other player may need that more on their turn, or if you need one of their cards specifically during your turn. Because the next phase is to play cards and maneuver. So I've talked about playing cards quite a bit at this point. You have a couple of basic types of cards. Some of them are going to be phasers like this. You can see the color shaded area is going to be an area that you can attack enemies in. So for this medium range front phaser, you would be dealing damage to anyone in the 2 border in the 2 front facing spaces ahead of you. And in order to do that, let's say this battlecruiser were in that range. If we were to use this medium range phaser on them, they would take 1 damage, and we would turn them so that the 2 is pointing towards the Enterprise instead of the 3. So that is kind of how you keep track of damage on those enemy pieces. Then you also have the opportunity to maneuver the Enterprise once. That can either be moving the Enterprise forward or rotating it. So if you rotate it, it can go from one line to the next, either clockwise or counterclockwise. The other option you have is to move it forward. The Enterprise does not physically move on the board at all. The way that you do that is by changing the relative position of enemy tokens in front of the Enterprise. So any enemies in the 2 spaces ahead of the Enterprise will move forward or towards the Enterprise 1 space. So in this case, if it were moving, we would move this battlecruiser 1 space. Another option that you have for cards is to commit them to a mission. So I kind of pointed out that there are symbols on these mission cards that indicate what the objective requires. So this one, for example, requires 1 engineering, 2 science, and 2 medical cards to be played towards it, and those are going to come out of your hand like anything else. So for example, you can see that this card has a medical symbol in the bottom left-hand corner of it. So on your turn, you can commit that, and that will be one of the 2 medical credits towards completing that mission. The reason that I saved this towards last is because this is the next phase of the player's turn. They will then check to see if the objective has been completed. So in this case, if all 5 of those cards have been applied towards that card, then we would complete that mission. We would put a token on the mission counter, and then we would claim whatever reward that mission is granting. In this case, it says players draw 1 additional Enterprise card during their next draw up phase. So in that case, their hands would be in size of 7 instead of 6 that turn. Next, threats will move and fire. So I kind of talked about the Enterprise moving. The way the threats move is they're just going to go down 1 band, and if they are in the short range band, then they are going to deal damage to the Enterprise. If there are shields up, then the damage is done to the shield, and that is indicated by these blast markers. Once the shield has already taken a damage, then it is removed from the Enterprise altogether. If there is no shield in the space that is being damaged, the ship will move onto the Enterprise and cause damage to the hull equal to its defense value at that point. The chip is then removed and placed back into the draw bag, which I'll get to in a second. But if the damage is less than 2, so if it's only 1 damage, then you will just put a damage marker on that section of the Enterprise. If the damage is more severe than that, then there are destroyed tokens to mark that that portion of the hull has been destroyed. If there is damage dealt to the Enterprise beyond the destruction of it, then damage is done by removing Enterprise cards from the game completely. If the deck is depleted and players cannot draw up to their hand limit, then that is one of the lose conditions for the game. The final part of a player's turn is to draw 2 new threats and place them on the board. So in this case, we'll draw, and this is a Romulan battlecruiser, and it will go in section 1. They always go in the furthest band, and then draw another one. We have a Klingon bird of prey going in section 5. And that would complete that player's turn. It would go on to the next player, and their turn would be much the same. The other option that players have is that each of them has a character card, which gives them a special ability. So, for example, this player is playing Scotty, and their special ability is that during the play cards and maneuver phase, they can repair one damaged hull or shield section without paying a card. So normally there are some cards which would allow you to heal or repair the ship, but Scotty can do that for free. The game continues like that until either there are no draw cards, the Enterprise is destroyed, either of which would cause the players to lose, or if the players manage to complete 5 missions and then destroy all remaining enemies on the board. At that point, no more enemies are added to the board, but they still have to clear it. At that point, the players would then win the game. And that's it. So if you listen to our podcast, you're probably aware that I am not a big fan of cooperative games. So why would I choose this one? Well, partially because there aren't a lot of great Star Trek games. Star Trek Ascendancy is a really good game, but we did that last year, and I think it took us like 6 hours to complete it. So I wasn't going to do another live play of that. Also, it was a lot easier just to get a game that can play only 2 players instead of 3. But I did enjoy Castle Panic, which is the original implementation of this system. Star Trek is kind of the reskin of it, but I think that the theme fits the mechanics very well, and I really appreciate how well the integration of the Star Trek stories work as missions for the game. It's not super complex. I've seen children play Castle Panic, so if they are into the Star Trek theme, this is something that I think they could handle as well. The other thing about Castle Panic is that it's not a purely cooperative game. As you destroy tokens, there are points on the other side that you get for being the one to destroy it, but you're still all trying to beat the game, and you can all lose together. But then once the players are declared winners, then whoever has the most points can still be victorious over the other players, I guess. This one doesn't have that, which kind of fits the Star Trek theme, right? It's not... You're not playing against your team. You're trying to work with them to save the day or complete whatever mission you're on. So I can appreciate that. I don't necessarily want to play it all the time because it's a cooperative game, but I do enjoy playing it. And I hope that you will join us on Twitch live April 5th for our live play at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And with that, thanks for watching. Bye.